Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 242 of the SoxProspects.com podcast. We are the web's number one source for information on the Boston Red Sox, from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Worcester, across the Pike to Fenway, and all stops in between. Thank you for listening. My name is Chris Hatfield. I'm the executive editor of Sox Prospects, and I'm joined, as always, by our director of scouting and my travel buddy, Ian Kundle. Ian, we are back home, unfortunately, but we finally got back to minor league spring training. The Sox Prospects 2022 spring training trip is in the books. It was a highly successful return to the fort for the boys from Sox Prospects. We got a lot of stuff to talk about on field, off field, what we saw, what we didn't see, what we wish we'd seen, what we could see in the future, and everything in between. We got a lot to talk about. How are you coming down from the trip?
I'm cold. I'll be honest. This weather's awful. It's not fun. It's always jarring when you start the day and, by mid-afternoon, you're still in Florida and it's, in the 80s, and then you get back to Boston and it's like 12.
Putting on the coat and stocking hat to walk the dog.
I didn't even have
rough.
When we got back, I didn't even have a coat. I was still wearing shorts.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. I didn't bring a coat. So yeah,
on the flight. Did you change?
I didn't have time to change.
Oh, all right.
Because remember, I got on that earlier flight. So,
that's right.
Yeah. So it was really cold. It's still cold, but baseball season is not cold. It's getting hot because we're getting close. It's kind of crazy to think it's less than a week until, well, actually AAA will have already started by this point, and Major League opening day is a week from is a week from tomorrow when we're recording this. It'll probably be a week from yesterday or today from when you're listening.
Yeah, I'm going to try and get this out on Thursday. We're recording this on Wednesday night, March the 30th.
But yeah, I think it's just interesting to me that we're a week away from opening day, and I still think the Red Sox have a ton of questions with their opening day roster.
Yeah.
And same thing with like the minor league, rosters. They seem to still be in flux too.
Yeah, and we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the Major League roster, like Ian alluded to, how that's coming or not coming together. We're going to talk about what we saw in the backfields in spring training, what we saw at each of the levels of the system based on how they're lined up out back or were lined up while we were there. And of course, as always, we're going to get to your emails. If you want to send us an email, hit us up at podcast@SoxProspects.com. And of course, if you want to support the show, you can support us two ways. First of all, you can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever podcast app you use. Tell a friend, get the word out. We appreciate it. You can also support us on patreon.com/SoxProspects, pledge a certain amount per episode, and get some neat perks, including the Patreon game updates at the $2 and up tier. We're going to start posting some Patreon game updates from spring training. We're going to talk about the highlights of what we saw in minor league spring training here on this episode. We're not going to tell you everything we saw, basically because we don't have time to do that. We were down there. Ian, you were there for what, Wednesday to Monday? So that's 5 days, right?
Yeah,
Wednesday,
I saw
Thursday, Friday,
Wednesday,
Saturday,
Thursday,
Sunday.
Saturday,
I guess
Monday.
6 days, but 5 in minor league.
I was there for 6, and I saw 5 minor league games, plus we saw a major league game also.
Exactly. So we're going to post even more to the Patreon. So make sure you get there. It's patreon.com/SoxProspects. But without any further ado, let's jump into it. And I guess before we get to the backfields, let's talk about the front field, Ian, and the major league roster. That
we're not going to talk about Kyle Tyler. Is that not what you want to talk about?
Well, he was only. Did you read that, by the way, that he literally came to Fort Myers, played catch, sat down, and got DFA'd?
Yeah, I mean,
that is
DFA roulette is hard. Like spring training, when you're a back end of a roster guy, must suck.
Awful.
Like
absolutely awful.
Or like, I mean, we I feel like we started with the Kiner Falefa discussion about how his car was like he had no idea where it was because he was started in Arizona, then he got traded to the Twins who were in Fort Myers. So he was shipping his car to Fort Myers, and then he got traded to the Yankees like 2 days later. But now, like, that's one thing. I mean, you're an MLB guy, you'll make it work. For guys like Kyle Tyler, like Sal Garza, it's tough. Like
Sal Garza, Ralph.
Is that his name?
His name's Ralph.
I was close.
Sal Fasano.
No, there's a Sal Garza for sure. He's a minor leaguer.
Oh, okay.
Cool. But yeah, he's
I did love that both James and I had the same reaction to Ralph Garza. That was definitely a creative player name in MLB The Show.
I will say his hair is awesome though.
It's pretty great. He's got the facial hair situation.
He also, I'm pretty sure he throws sidearm, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, so, it's pretty low. Kelly O'Connor, who was down there, Had some pretty good photos of him and throwing.
Well, I was basing that solely off of I saw him take infield and he was simulating his pitcher's motion, throwing sidearm, and I was like, "There's unless he's being
that'd
like
be
petulant.
A weird thing to do."
Well, no, because like I remember back in high school, people would do that on PFPs just as like a joke.
Yeah,
but I feel like you're not doing that in a minor league spring training,
especially if you're the 40th guy on the 40-man roster.
Exactly. So
is going to be making more moves and just brought you in for a guy that they had on the roster for about 48 hours.
I was about to say like 2 days. Yeah. So that's interesting stuff. So, but we don't really need to talk about that. I think we just talk about the roster in general because
I think in flux.
Yeah, I think we both agree it's not a finished product, and I don't think that the margins of it are as good as they need to be.
Well, let's start with the fact that Trevor Story has signed since the last episode.
Oh, did that happen?
Yeah, that actually happened.
Wow, we haven't recorded in a while.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute.
Sorry.
Really kind of an obvious move to get a big right-handed bat into the lineup wherever they could.
No, but I thought Chaim Bloom was going to, run them like the Rays and they were never going to spend any money.
That was the best.
That's what I was told. That was what everyone told me. Like Twitter was all over that.
I was starting to have a little bit of the feeling in that. Remember when Dombrowski came in and everyone's like, "Oh, he's going to trade all your prospects."
Yeah, but he literally did.
And then, but remember the first offseason, we're like, no. Then he makes the Kimbrel trade, and you're like, But I mean, it's one trade. They needed a closer. And then the next offseason, they made a couple more trades. And then
the problem with Dombrowski for me it wasn't just that. It was that like every trade was a prospect too many. It was like
one or two. Yeah.
He's like that guy in like a fantasy league who just doesn't care really about prospects and is like, whatever. I'll throw in one more just for fun. I just want to get this trade over the line because I like this MLB player.
Right.
And like that can work for a while, but it's just not sustainable. And we saw it not being sustainable with the Red Sox, and obviously it ended up in the situation which Chaim Bloom has inherited and kind of and Co have done a great job of turning around.
Yep.
But I do think that people were obviously concerned about the Red Sox lack of activity, especially with the rest of the AL East just loading up. And I don't think it helped either that the Red Sox were clearly being used by agents with every single good free agent as like a team to drive the price up.
Stalking horse, yeah.
And like, you saw them linked with Freddie Freeman, which was never going to happen. It made no sense.
No.
And who was the other? Oh, Correa. Like everyone was, the Red Sox were there in the background, interested in the player. I think the Kings of Interest was the thing trending on Twitter or whatever.
Well, that was a Carabas thing from last offseason or the offseason before.
But yeah, I mean, like they were I just think that the Story deal, based on the read it seems is like it was complicated. They had some stuff they needed to work out, but that was in the works for a while. And I think that just like everything for them was they were waiting for that.
It seemed like he was always their guy.
Yeah, they had a lot of eggs in that basket, and it was just waiting for the final shoe to drop and to get it.
Part
over
of me
line.
wonders if it depended on Suzuki. Or maybe not depended. Maybe not even depended. Maybe they were going to try and get both.
I don't think it depended because I think that they had room for both on the roster.
They did.
I just think that Story was waiting for Correa to sign. And once Correa signed,
set the market.
It set the market, and that was able, they went back and finalized everything. And, obviously they got him into camp, and then he left camp, and now he's back.
Right. For the birth of his child. Congratulations to Trevor Story. He's had a week. I mean, in the lineup, Ian, there's two big things to me now.
Well, do you want to just quickly, I think the contract is fine. I think the money's fine. And I really like
the way they structured it. It's got an opt-out that they can tack on a year and he stays.
Yeah, and I like that because it's basically like, okay, you're really good. You want to opt out? Sure, we'll add another year. Like, it seems like a win-win to me. So
the only way, so it's an opt-out after year 4.
Yeah.
The only way one of three things happens. One is the case in which he's not good enough to want to opt out, in which case he stays through all 6 years.
Correct.
One is the case in which he's clearly good enough to opt out and the team keeps him around by adding the 7th year automatically.
Correct.
The third instance would be, I guess there's 4, but one in another instance could be at year 4, he doesn't want to opt out, but he recovers and they have a club option on the 7th year anyway.
Oh, do they? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's a club option that when he opts out, they can make it guaranteed to keep.
Yeah, but if he doesn't opt out, it's still a club option.
It's still a club option, I think.
Got it. I don't know. I don't know about that.
And then the fourth one would be like the situation in which he opts out
and they
the
decide
Red Sox
that they have
let him walk.
Well, I
is
think
a weird one.
No, I would say the one way that makes sense is, let's say like he's been good, he opts out, but like Meyer's ready in 4 years, and they're like, it's time to turn over to him.
But if he opts out because he thinks he's worth more than the $25 million, if the only way they let him walk is if they disagree. Because if you think he's worth more than 25
million,
not
necessarily because you might not want the third year. You might not want his age 37 season. Like, I don't think that's ludicrous.
If it's borderline, but the thing is, he's opting out. Like,
right, but if he's
opting out, if it's a situation where he's not going to get a deal for that third year.
No, and that's why it's a weird contract. The Red Sox have all the power. Like, they can decide if they want him for those last 3 years or not, basically, if he opts out. Right. So
it would be a very strange situation if he opts out and they don't bring him back for that 3 more years. But there's two weird things looking at the hitter side of the lineup, Ian. The first is that Jackie Bradley is very clearly the starting right fielder, which I don't think we would have thought when they traded for him. I find myself talking myself into it.
Well, yeah, I think for me, it comes down to earlier in the offseason, I feel like a lot of people would have been fine if it was like Nick Castellanos or Suzuki or someone in right field and Arroyo at second base. And so I don't understand but I mean, I feel like people like Christian Arroyo and think he's like, could be an everyday player. I don't think he is, but
yeah,
like, I think that they just flipped it and they went with the second baseman, and they're going to platoon Bradley with like Christian Arroyo in the outfield. Yeah. And I don't think Bradley's as bad as he looked last season. I mean, I don't think he'll be as good as he was, during his first run with the Red Sox, but
yeah,
I think he'll play a good he can play good defense. And I think, frankly, they're basically banking, and you're seeing the Yankees are doing the same thing, that you can have two dead outs in the back of the lineup if they play good defense. Like, Red Sox have Vasquez and Bradley or whoever else is in right field. Yankees have Kinner Falefa and their catcher is going to be atrocious at hitting.
It's like Higashioka and
or
the guy
Ben Rovert or something who, he's not good at hitting. I think he hit like 190 last year. So I think the teams are just realizing that if you can get, a plus defense out of those guys, that's more important. And especially with how big Fenway is, I want a good right fielder. So I think I'm okay with it. We'll see how it plays out. And I think the caveat is, though, this is assuming that the rest of the offense, lives up to expectations, because I think the 1 through 7 in the lineup is going to be excellent. But if there's injuries there or struggles there, then obviously that narrative is going to flip, because you can't be carrying like 3-4 dead outs in every lineup.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, if you look from the top, it's going to be Kike, apparently Devers, Bogarts, JD.
Can I say I love that too? Like, they're doing the ultimate like sabermetric lineup where your best hitter's third, best hitter second, best hitter's fourth.
Yep.
And the way they have it right now is how I would have it too. With
Verdugo 5, Story 6 is interesting. I don't know
if you want to protect Verdugo, because Verdugo is not great against lefties, and then Story kills lefties. So that's the key. That's why you do it that way.
Trevor Story hitting 6th is interesting, and I'm fine with Bobby Dahlbeck hitting 7th. I really am.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you're not going to want to put in a lefty to face Devers or Verdugo. Like, that's a good for the Red Sox.
Or you're going to do it. Well, I guess you can't, because you can't do one batter anymore.
No, there's no one batter. That's so right. It's a good situation for the Red Sox, where if you're going to put in a lefty to face Devers, okay, lefty's going to have to face, JD and Kike Hernandez, or Kike Hernandez and Bogarts or whatever.
Right.
Same thing. If you're going to do it for Verdugo, they're going to get Dahlbeck and Story with crush lefties. So I think that's I think with how few lefties they have in the lineup, that construction works.
The bench is the other thing that I noticed, but let's table that for a minute. The rotation seems pretty clearly to be Eovaldi, Pivetta, Houck, Waka, and then either Hill or Whitlock, who apparently are fighting for the last rotation spot, which is not. The fact that Waka appears to be safe and Hill does not is interesting to me.
Well, Waka's been good this spring, though.
I know he's been good, but it's not like, has Hill been atrocious? Like,
I don't know. I think
he's been fine. Like, it seems like from day one, it's been like Hill versus Whitlock. Like, they've been lined up. One is piggybacking the other. They're alternating.
Rich Hill has thrown 5 innings, 3 hits, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts, no runs this spring.
He's been fine. Like, he's arguably been better than Waka, who's not striking anyone out.
Well, no, they've both been better than Tanner Houck, who's been atrocious this spring. Yeah. So, and Tanner Houck, though, was anointed. Someone
he was
texted
okay
me
today. Well, the thing with Houck is
No,
I think
he-
Houck's the
he-
guy
he-
who makes it, who you bump out of the rotation when Sale comes back. I mean,
Well, he fell off the second time through today. It was
Did
the
he?
same story as always. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I was texting with someone who was at the game, and they were just like, yeah, it's Tanner
It is
Houck is
what it
back.
is.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll see if I can bring up the box score while you talk for a second.
yeah, I mean, that's fine. I mean, look, I mean, it's those 5 and Whitlock are 6 of the pitchers. From there, you've got Matt Barnes, Jake Dykman, who I think signed since the last episode, Ryan Brazier, Matt Strom.
Yeah, I was just saying we probably should go through the transactions because there were a lot.
Dykman and Strom.
I think it's Diekman, by the way.
Diekman and Strom, thank you. Diekman and Strom. Lefties Jake Diekman and Matt Strom signed, which is interesting that they went and got 2 lefty relievers, which just screams a lack of confidence in Austin Davis and Darwinzon Hernandez.
Well, I think it's that
Josh
also.
Taylor,
I think they knew Josh Taylor was going to be hurt too.
Yeah, he's starting the year on the injured list with ribs, is it? Or
Back.
Is that Sale?
It's back.
Back. Yeah, Sale is ribs. Right, rib stress fracture. Fracture. Yeah.
So Houck's 4th inning today was single, wild pitch, strikeout, sac fly, hit by pitch, strikeout. So he kind of got lucky there, but
I mean, he kind of also got BABIP'd, it seems, but
2 singles, a strikeout, a hit by pitch, a walk. I mean, sorry, a wild pitch. Like that's what happens.
Right. 1 wild pitch. No, I got that. And a walk is in there. I get that too. But I'm saying it's like this inning starts with the 2 singles. I don't know what happened on the 2 singles. Anyway, I mean, they're they've got a lot of lefties in the bullpen right now. They say they're also going to stretch out Darwinzon Hernandez so in case they need long relief.
I don't love the bullpen right now. I don't
either.
I'm not a fan at all.
Sawamura. We project that Phillips Valdez is going to make the team along with Austin Davis.
He's been excellent this spring. Valdez
He's been very good. I think I get him making it. I have no problems with that.
Well, I think with Valdez too, it's if he's not going to make the team, then he shouldn't be on the 40-man. Like,
right.
Because
right.
that you can't
it's
have
one of the two.
Yeah.
It's one of the two. He either makes the team or he gets DFA, because the other thing is they brought in as non-roster invites to Major League Spring Training on minor league contracts, Hansel Robles and Derek Holland, neither of whom we project to make the roster because Robles still isn't in camp as we talk tonight because he's having visa issues. And Holland, like, and I guess this is where we can get into the bench a little bit. The bench, it's Kevin Plawecki, Christian Arroyo, and then 2 question marks, because it seemed pretty clear that Travis Shaw, who they signed, was going to get 1 spot to be a left-right platoon, essentially, with Dahlbeck. And then
I don't think it would be a platoon, though. I think it would be
not a
Shaw.
Platoon, but
I think Dahlbeck's the everyday player, and Shaw would play on occasion and pinch hit like against tough late inning righties or something.
Or not a platoon. I'm sorry. I mean, it's
like, I think Dahlbeck, it's pretty clear to me Dahlbeck is the everyday first baseman.
Oh, no question. No question.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, but yeah. I didn't mean to imply that Shaw would be on the strong side of the platoon. That's a fair point. But Shaw plays some at first base and backs up the corners. And they need an outfielder, because if they break camp right now and they have to have just people who are in the organization, we were just talking about this. Is it Ref Snyder? Is it Christian Stewart? Is it Franchi? Guess what? None of those guys are on the 40 because they already optioned Ryan Fitzgerald, who we're going to talk about in a bit.
Well, he's not on the 40 either, though. So
I guess that's true. Oh, yeah, that's right. So they sent him down to minor league camp.
Yeah.
I mean, is it?
Well, it's like the same with
Yolmer
Shaw,
Sanchez, because the thing is you're moving Arroyo to the outfield, so Yolmer Sanchez can make it. Guess what? He's not on the 40 either. You got to add those 2. Derek Holland's not on the 40. If you want to add Derek Holland and option Darwinzon, like, you're just running out of guys to DFA, because they DFA'd Hudson Potts, who cleared, and they DFA'd Jason Rosario, who got claimed by the New York Yankees.
Yeah. But it's like, and this is the problem I have, is I don't think Travis Shaw, like, I mean, he was a great Red Sox. I think he's put together a heck of a career for where he's drafted. He's 0 for 17 this spring.
Yeah.
Like,
with 9 strikeouts.
His bat speed, and we saw him take BP up close. He just doesn't have bat speed anymore. And like,
yeah, it's not good.
I don't think you can. I just don't think he's a player you can carry on a major league roster these days if you want to be a competitive team. Like, I mean, last year with the Red Sox, he hit 238, 319, 524, and 42 at bats. Like, that's obviously that's fine. If he can do that, you can put him on. I'm fine putting him on the roster. But like, the larger samples with Minnesota, he was 191, 279, 337. You can't carry that. Like, and I just think that with what the team is currently constructed, like, what is his role? Like, and you said it, like, if he's not going to platoon with Dahlbeck, which I don't think you want him on the strong side of a platoon with Dahlbeck, what is he going to do? Like, you're not going to hit him for Devers. Devers is going to play third base the entire time. So do you pinch hit? You give Dahlbeck like one day off a week? Like, if you're going to do that, play Christian Roy at first base. You know what I mean? Like, you have other options that can do, or play Plawecki at first base. Like, I just don't see what he brings to the roster that they don't already have. But at the same time, and this is the issue, I don't see a better alternative either.
Yeah.
And that's where it's weird. Like,
yeah, I mean, who else is on the 40 who's still in camp? Because Duran, Wong, and Hernandez have all been optioned.
Downs got optioned, right?
Downs, yeah, I'm looking for the first round of cuts.
I mean,
yeah, Downs got options.
Yeah,
he was. I mean, Downs is in the first round of cuts, which tells you
as he should be. Yeah, not a surprise.
We're going to talk about him in a minute. It's not good.
No, not at all.
You know, honestly, I'm a little surprised they sent Fitzgerald down as quickly as they did. But again,
well, the thing is, because he's not on the 40, they can just bring him back up if they need to. He wasn't optioned.
I mean, you could do that even with the guy who's optioned. But
can you? I didn't know that. I thought you had to wait 10 days or something.
Yeah, but they did it on like the 27th. They're going to be ready by the 7th.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're a guy. Yeah.
He could be back up by opening day. I mean, but again, they wouldn't have done it if there was a chance he was going to make the opening day roster. So, like, the only guy left on the 40 man is Jonathan Aruz. Like, that's it. Yeah. Wong's down, Downs is down, Duran's down.
I mean, and this, I think it comes back to a larger point is that right now on the 40 man, it's really imbalanced. They have way too many pitchers on it. And then the position players they do have, other than Jarren Duran, there isn't a single one that I would be comfortable like having to play more than like as an emergency player at the MLB level right now. Yeah. Like, I would not be comfortable putting Connor Wong or Ronaldo Hernandez like having to play an extended period of time. Like, Connor Wong at least can defend, so that's usable.
Right.
Ronaldo Hernandez is not a good defender, and like who knows if he can hit even. But at the same time, if you DFA him, he's getting claimed immediately.
Oh yeah, both of them.
Then like Jeter Downs is the same thing. You can't DFA Jeter Downs as much as we'll get into that later. And then the other option is Jonathan Rouse, and he's fine. And I just think that if something happens, I'd rather have him around than someone like Travis Shaw. Cause like there's a path where I can see him having to play. Whereas I just don't see any way that Travis Shaw has to play.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, and this is kind of where this leads. I know Alex Cora said today, he thinks the 28 guys they're going to break camp with or in the organization right now. I don't believe that. I really don't. I think that they are going to look at what happens with other rosters throughout the game. Because the thing is, there are a lot of guys across the game who got signed to minor league deals or who are in camp with a bunch of other guys who play the same position because teams didn't know what was going to happen with the lockout and they signed them all. There's guys in the Red Sox organization who are like that, right? Roberto Ramos became completely expendable when they signed Shaw, basically, right? Like he barely got run in Major League Camp. I don't believe for a minute that they're gonna break camp with Rob Refsnyder. You can't. Like, who again? Like, you're gonna DFA guys to add Travis Shaw and Rob Refsnyder both to your roster right now. Like,
well, and that's my thing. How is
that how you do it?
You look at the 40-man roster, and it's not just that these guys have to play. Have to be like, how are these guys going to play at the major league level? It's you're losing another player to get them on the roster. And like, for me, I look at it, I would rather trade someone like Ronaldo Hernandez for a guy who was DFA'd from another team than have to like DFA player X to add Travis Shaw, for example.
Yeah. I mean, look, Ralph Garza, who is a waiver claim that they made from the Minnesota Twins, seems like the fairly obvious next DFA. That's one obvious DFA, right? After that,
you get it. It's tough. It's like
Bizardo, I guess.
But it's like, I mean, he threw well in his one spring inning, which is weird. I guess they've just not had enough innings, which is strange. But
yeah, I mean, look, we've got Cutter Crawford making the roster in part because he's on the 40. Like, because there's only so many guys you can bring in from off.
I mean, he's also pitched really well in spring. Like, his velocity is up. Like he's earned it, and I think
he can give them length.
that's the thing is with how can the rotation that you want a second like long reliever with Whitlock, especially because I think they're going to use Whitlock in late innings still.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so
because you have to almost.
That's the other thing is the bullpen is just as constructed. They're praying for Matt Barnes to retake the closer role.
But the thing is, if Barnes does retake the closer job, if Whitlock is not in the bullpen, who would you trust to pitch the eighth inning on that? There's not a single person I would trust.
No, then that's, I'll talk about this later when we talk about the Sox Prospect Media Blitz, but I was on the Rob Bradford show and that's what he made that point. And I agreed with him. Like, who else do you trust? Brazier? Like Diekman hasn't been good. Strom is oft injured. Like Darwinzon and Austin Davis have done nothing to inspire our collective imagination. So, yeah, it's an interesting situation.
I think they're definitely hoping that one of the lefties will step up, and I think Strom or Diekman. They're hoping that one of them can kind of step up and fill that eighth inning role and be the lefty out of there.
No question. Question.
Yeah, the second righty, like assuming Barnes is the closer, like I think that job's wide open, and that's why I do think the one like thing that's good is, and we'll probably talk about this a little later. Maybe we'll talk about like the thing I tweeted today, but I do think they have some arms coming that are pretty interesting and that have like late inning stuff. And it's just, I don't think those guys are ready yet, but I think they could be ready in a few months into the season. And I think that's I almost wonder if they're kind of like biding their time until those guys are ready.
Moving on, then we were on the backfields for our annual trip to minor league camp. And again, the support of all of our supporters on Patreon and donors and those who visit the site allows us to do this. As we, just to give some background, we like to say it's one-stop shopping to cover the minor league system because you get essentially every player in the farm system who's going to be stateside this year, more or less, who is currently in the organization, all in one place. So that's why having minor league spring training is an irreplaceable tool for us to evaluate the talent in the system. And the fact that we didn't get to go, first of all, just it stunk because it's fun for us. We love being back there. But not getting to go for the past 2 years has really created something of a scouting deficit, right? Where,
yeah, I mean, especially with combined with no instructs either.
Yeah, exactly. It's just we lose the opportunity to see these guys all at once, next to each other, playing each other. Granted, with a grain of salt because it's spring training, but just being able to see where the stuff is, being able to see where they are athletically, being able to look at the swing up close on the backfields. And just to give you the sense of what generally happens over the course of a day, the day starts with the players going out for morning workouts, stretch, throw, infield, outfield, BP, some base running, PFPs. Some pitchers will go through bullpens. The rehab guys, you see who's rehabbing with the Tommy John crew and to see who's probably may or may not break camp with affiliates coming into the year. You see all these things.
You see Rafael Devers practicing his bunting.
Yeah, you see Rafael Devers practicing his bunting against the shift. I mean, seriously, that's the thing we saw.
That actually did happen. It was him, Bradley, Aruz, and
Aruz, Bradley, and I want to say one more. But
Yomer Sanchez, maybe.
Duran base hit
Duran,
bunting.
That's who it was. Yeah,
Duran base hit bunting,
which they said earlier in camp core said they wanted him to do that more.
Yeah, because he's fast. That's the thing you do when you're fast, Jaron. So. Yeah, I mean, it's an irreplaceable tool for us, and it was great that we got to go after a 2-year hiatus, which is really a 3-year hiatus because the end of the last trip to the beginning of this one was a little less than 3 years, if you think of it that way.
Yeah.
So great to get down there.
And then they go to lunch and then they play games. And there was definitely some confusion about this. So they call them the Worcester, Portland, Greenville, and Salem games. But they're not necessarily just because a guy's playing in a game doesn't mean he's going to that level. That's just literally like the schedule they give out or not give out, but the schedule that they have and share with other teams has them called that. And so it just because and I know there was some confusion because I was tweeting like Blaze Jordan is playing in the Greenville game, for example. And just because he's playing in that game doesn't mean necessarily he's going to high A or anything.
And in fact, usually means they're going to go down a level. Especially
I would say in
given
general it's that.
especially given the number of guys in Major League camp. I mean, while we were down there, Gilberto Jimenez moved from Portland to Greenville.
Yeah.
Like that happened while we were there because of cuts that were made from Major League camp that pushed the Worcester guys down, that pushed the Portland guys down.
But at the same time, then you have like guys like Ceddanne Rafaela who are like playing center field in the AAA games. So sometimes it's just like weird.
Right. Although Ceddanne Rafaela was playing in the AA, he moved down in the same chain.
Right. Well, he also still playing like half the MLB games too.
Yeah. And they had a lot of guys. I mean, with the way it worked out, and I mean, I'll say this was a weird camp because of the shortened Major League camp, because of the number of guys they still needed to have up in Major League camp. I mean, there was the one full regular day of workouts I got down there.
Well, I think that's different too. Like usually every morning there are 4 fields going at least, and they have guys, doing what you described, the PFPs infield hitting. They only did that.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying they only did that full morning of workouts twice while I was down there out of the 5 days of workouts that I saw. So for 3 days, we didn't get that, which was obviously a little tough, but still, weird. Yeah.
Well, and the reason that happened is the minor leaguers do always what the major league teams did this year for the most part, which is they only play in their pod of local teams. So the minor leaguers either play Minnesota across town, the Orioles in Sarasota, the Braves in Northport, and
the Rays.
The Rays in Port Charlotte. Thank you. They don't take trips across the state or anything.
They didn't
like that.
This year, though. They didn't even play Baltimore or Atlanta.
No, they played Atlanta.
No, they didn't.
The one day that they weren't there, they were in Northport.
No, they weren't.
I was there on Friday.
They were in Port Charlotte that day.
Were they in Port Charlotte that day?
Yes.
They were in Northport. Oh, the major league team was in Northport.
No, they in spring training this year, they're only playing the Rays and the Twins.
That's it. How does that doesn't even make sense?
Yes, it does, because the Rays are playing other teams.
I guess because they're closer down there.
Yeah. I mean, I can bring the schedule up, but
yeah. Interesting. I could have sworn they were also playing the Braves at least once or twice, but I could definitely be wrong about that. At any rate,
I have the schedule right here. It's Minnesota, Tampa Bay. They played Atlanta twice, actually. You're right. Before we got there, though. They didn't play them after that.
They do play the Twins a ton.
Minnesota, Atlanta, Minnesota, Tampa Bay, Minnesota, Tampa Bay, Minnesota.
Yeah.
So they played Atlanta twice at the beginning of camp, but after the first 3 days, they only played Tampa and the Twins.
Yeah. So, looking at that schedule, they're mostly across town, which is great because we can divide and conquer and, send 2 of us across town and 2 of us are in JetBlue Park. The AA and AAA teams usually stay in one place. The low A and high A teams go to the other place. So we were down there catching the games in the afternoon, and we go from there. Like I said, it's one-stop shopping for all of this. But while we were down there, one day the major league team took over the backfields in the morning. One day was the day they were going to Port Charlotte, so
they don't do morning stuff.
They don't
because
they
have to leave so early
because they just get the guys on the bus in the morning and they go.
I mean, they take BP and stuff in the cages, but they have to.
They don't come out
to get for reference. Port Charlotte's about an hour and a half drive from Fort Myers to the Rays facility. So, if you're trying to get there for a 1:00 game, you have to be there by 12 because they want to get there early. You're leaving at 10:30 ish. So there's just not enough time to do stuff on the field in the morning.
Yeah. And then another day was the day that the day that everyone in theory was out back. The major league team had a day off. And so they were doing a sim game inside the stadium, and they brought up a bunch of the minor league guys for the sim game, including Marcelo Mayer, who I didn't get to see work out the entire dang trip.
Well, you know what they say about that?
Unlucky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unlucky.
Well, no, and it's funny actually. I didn't see him play the field. I was there for 6 days, and I only saw him hit. So I did see it, and it was good. Oh, don't get me wrong, it was very good. And I talked to some scouts who saw him play the field, but I didn't get to see him take a single ground ball, which is just wonky that he wasn't out in any of the mornings either.
Yeah. I mean, that's just how it worked out. It was really weird, and it doesn't mean anything, but At least I think it doesn't mean anything. He was
Well,
playing.
no, because he was playing shortstop in the major league game, so it's fine. But
it's weird. It was just a very weird situation. So yeah, we caught most of the guys in camp at some point or another. The vast majority, but over the course of the time that we were there. And I guess where we want to start, let's start here. I just think it's a funny story to talk. It's funny to tell people. This was like the Sox prospects media blitz. So the first thing we do, we get down there. I missed like an hour. I was supposed to get in on Thursday and catch like half of the afternoon, but I got delayed because of thunderstorms in the area, and so I basically missed that day. But you were down there at field, and then the next day, I think it was Friday. You recorded.
I was down there. I was down there Wednesday also.
No, I know, but you on Friday. I'm talking about the media blitz.
Oh yeah.
Right now, the Sox prospects media blitz. You recorded what, 2 hours of
like an hour and a half? Yeah, a long time.
Audio for NESN's website that they're already starting to roll out.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. You should check it out.
Check it out on NESN.com.
Ricky and Jenna do a great job.
Yep. So Ian records that. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, yeah, let's get back to the hotel. You can do that. Do your thing, man. That's great. The next day, we're at the park, and I wind up doing Rob Bradford's radio show. The game ends at 4. I go up there and I do 3 segments with him live on WEEI talking about the minor league system. So that was pretty sick. And then we cap it off on Sunday. We go to the major league game and we do a stand up with Tom Karen on NESN. So we got the full Sox prospects media blitz going where, he's asking us about, prospects who, he's asking James for a prospect off the radar, and he like whips out Edinson Paulino immediately. So we were everywhere, man. We were on the backfields. We were on the radio. We were on TV. It was a heck of a trip for any number of reasons. But I mean, as far as what happened on field, Ian, I think it really needs to start with the top 3. The big 3 in the system right now of Triston Casas, Marcelo Mayer, and Nick Yorke.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about them. They're clearly the class of the system at this point. I think it's a full 2 grades possibly above anybody else in the system at this point. We were discussing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the case because I don't think Duran I would put a 50 on right now.
So yeah,
and Bayo's still, I think, in the 45 range. I mean, you can argue him a 50, but I want to see a little more before I'd go there. So yeah, I think there's a pretty sizable gap between those top 3 and everyone else.
So let's just jump quickly into what we saw out of them. I mean, the thing with maybe just starting with Casas, the main thing you notice with him is just how dang big the dude is. He's
head
and shoulders,
not huge,
else.
Like fat. Like
no,
he's built like he's like 6'6" ish. He looks like he should be playing like college basketball. He's like 6'6".
Though. Like it's an interesting.
I don't know. It's an interesting body, but he's probably like 6'6", 250. But it's like he carries it well, and like
he's
still pretty agile.
He's not Gronk, but he's like he's not like chiseled,
fine.
But like he
fine.
carries it fine. Like
yeah.
Didn't see a whole lot from him on field. I only caught one game that he was in because he was up with the major league team.
Yeah, he was with the major league team a lot of the time.
A fair amount while we were there. I mean, he's fine. I think
because they ran out the Sox prospects in field for that game in Baltimore that one night where it was like, who was it? It was Costas at first, Yorke at second, Mayer at third, and Benelis at third. Or sorry, Mayer at short and Benelis at third. I think
they're actually doing that right now because we the site account tweeted it and everyone's asking where's Blaze because of course they are.
Well, no, I'm saying they did it again today, I think, but
yeah. But you were saying they're rolling out the kind of like Sox prospects infield. I think that's a good way to put it. I like that. It's interesting.
Casas is fine though. Like, I mean, we know what he is. Like,
we saw more of Mayer and Yorke. Why don't you talk about Mayer and I'll talk about Yorke real quick.
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted it today. He's the real deal. Like, he can really hit, and it's the thing that I think is most interesting to me is he kind of looks like he's almost not trying, but he is, in the sense that he's just very like quiet and like kind of almost low profile. Like, he's not flashy in the way he plays the game. It's just he goes up there, he gets in the box and he'll take a couple pitches, he knows the strike zone really well. he's talking to himself, like when he knows when it's a ball and a strike. He does the thing where he's shaking his head before as the pitch is coming in, because he knows it's not coming in, but you know what I mean? Like when the pitch just gets past him, he's like, no, that's not strike. Like he knows it that well. And he's not trying to do too much. He's just trying to get on base, just hit the ball hard. And that's what he did a lot of the time when he was there. I mean, I saw him hit, I think he had like 3 or 4 hits in the 2 games I saw of him.
Yep.
Plus, he had that home run off the Eovaldi in the sim game, which we saw the video of. And
right.
Like
to the deepest part of the park too.
Yeah, he hit a dead center. Like he's off the Red Sox ace as a 19-year-old. Just think about that statement. He's just extremely polished. I think he's gonna hit. I think he'll hit for power too. He's much bigger than not in a good way than I thought. Like he's a legit 6'3", probably 190 pounds, really strong build. I'm not sure how much projection there is left physically, but I don't think it's really gonna matter. Like, if he hits the way he could, then he's going to be an easy, like everyday regular. And, the fact that he fell to 4 to me is still baffling, because he checks all the boxes you look for in a shortstop prospect. And yeah, I mean, it's really tough having to kind of, nitpick at the top between him and Casas for that number 1 spot. Cause I think all 3 of them are excellent. I do think that Casas and Mayer have a slight edge over Yorke at this point, but it's definitely, very close.
Yeah. I mean, for Yorke, I mean, the thing that stood out to me, he's gotten himself into great shape. He's not a naturally chiseled body type is how.
Well, no. And I think that's one of the big differences between them is like Mayer looks the part. He's like, as I said, like 6'3", 190, that's the prototypical build you're looking for. Casas is just like abnormally huge in a good way. He's like 6'6". Yorke is just like a normal ish size. He's probably 6 foot, 200 pounds. Like,
yeah, but he looks good right now, which is not something I would.
Yeah, no, he looks strong.
Last year.
He looks strong. He looked more athletic this spring than I thought he did last year when I saw him with Salem. I obviously expressed some concerns with his defense then, and I thought defensively he looked better this time around. I thought he was more agile. I thought he was a little more kind of mobile.
And my gosh, can he hit?
And not mobile, a little more flexible. I thought one of the big issues I had with him last year, that he was a little stiff.
Athletic,
but
I put it.
But yeah, no, I was impressed with him in the field. I mean, it's not going to be great. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not a Gold Glove defender, but if he can get to even average at second base with his ability to hit, which you'll talk about right now, like, yeah, that's an easy everyday player.
I mean, he just gets the bat on the ball and hits it hard, and just, I mean, everything you look, he's just hitterish. Like he looks like he'd fall out of bed and go 2 for 4, 3 for 4. I don't know how much power he's going to hit for.
That's the thing is like, and I think part of it is he could hit for more power, but I don't think he's the type of player who's going to sell out for power. Like,
he's not going to sell out for it, but I mean, he could also wind up hitting for some power. We're not saying that
he's going to hit the ball so hard.
But
I think he's like 15 to 20 home runs would be my guess. But if you told me he had 25 home run seasons, I'd be like, yeah, I mean, he hits the ball that hard. Like,
and if you told me he had 5 home run seasons, I would also believe it.
I think he'd get more than 5. I would say 10 is. I mean, if he's hitting 5 home runs, that's like David Fletcher. He's not David Fletcher.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But
you got to go like 10 to 15 there for me to.
Yeah, I mean, he has a down season where he's only hitting like 270 or something. I don't know, or 250. I don't know. Just like a year where he doesn't put it together. On the low end.
More. He's not hitting 270 with 5 home runs. I feel very confident in saying that if he's playing every day.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, I mean, it's. It is what it is. He can hit, and that's really all there is to it. It's a pretty swing. He puts in good at bats. I think, what did he put in, a 12, 13 pitch at bat that I got the full video of?
12 pitch at bat.
12 pitch at bat that I put the video of on Twitter.
I think you missed a pitch though, but then he got a hit.
I did miss a pitch because like my phone right now is great because you can pause the video and just pick it up right from, give the pitch, ball goes back to the pitcher, everybody gets set, and then you just restart the video. And I like missed, like I hit it once too many or something. So like I was filming in between pitches. Anyway, got most of it up there. So at any rate, yeah, the dude can hit. And we were talking earlier, Ian, about where this top 3 ranks. First of all, in the game right now, and second of all, in the organization since we've been doing this. In the game right now, I think we're looking at what? Let me bring up our conversation from earlier. It's not the top trio in the game.
Top 3, I would say. Top 4.
Okay, so let me run through them and you give me your When were we talking about this? Okay, I think I got it right here. I saw the word hassle. Okay, cool. All right, so let's start. I'll just run through some teams. I'll name the trio. You just give me a quick up or down on who you take. I think this one's probably the other team. Orioles, Adley Rushman, Grayson Rodriguez, and either Gunnar Henderson or DL Hall or Colton Cowser.
It'd be DL. It'd be DL Hall, but
well, he's ranked third of the three in MLB's top 100, so I don't think it's given. But
yeah, I mean,
at any rate,
it's like it's just that one is carried on the fact that the other two are just so good because obviously Yorke is better than any of those other three, in my opinion.
I think so too.
But the first two are like two of the top 5 guys in all of baseball. So
yep.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with this next team. I think you're going to go to.
Yeah, the Mariners, Julio.
Oh Rodriguez. No, not who you were going to go to. I thought you were going to the Tigers next.
No, the Mariners, Julio Rodriguez, Noel V. Marte, and it's George Kirby, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's like another comparable one. Like it's in the ballpark.
Yeah, I probably go M's, but
you probably go Mariners because Julio Rodriguez is the best prospect in that group. But
Marte might be the second best prospect.
If you told me it was like, I think he's in that tier with like Casas and Meyer, like the 15 to like 30 range for prospects.
But if you liked Marte better than the other two, I wouldn't like say you're crazy.
No.
That's what I'm saying. Next, Kansas City Royals, Bobby Witt, MJ Melendez, Nick Pratto. I think I go Red Sox.
Yeah, I mean, Witt's obviously the best prospect of that group, but
then I think you got the next three of the Red Sox.
I would take Casas over Pratto, not that close. And Melendez is nice, but I'm still not sold those guys. The improvements those two made last season hold. Like they went from literal not nobodies, but like their prospect stock was way down and they really struggled to hit to like, they both hit like 40 home runs last year. So we'll kind of wait and see with those guys.
All right, Diamondbacks, Alec Thomas, Carroll, and Jordan Lawler. I forget Corbin Carroll, right?
Yeah. And this is I think this is the most like for like comparison of the group. Obviously the positions are a little different, but both Carroll and Thomas are, closer to big league ready position players with good hit tools, get on base, they'll have some pop. And then Lawler's kind of like the wild card, whereas for the Red Sox, they got Casas and Yorke are kind of close, and then Meyer's not a wild card, but he's a little obviously down a little further away. But I think I'd probably take the Red Sox group, but it's pretty close.
Really?
There. Yeah.
Interesting.
I think Meyer, obviously I would take Meyer over Lawler, and I think you could make the case to take Yorke over Lawler. And then I think it comes down to Carroll's injury history just really concerns me. Like he hasn't been healthy in like 3 years, and I'm just not sure because of the power ceiling is limited for both of them. I'm not sure exactly what their upsides are. And I think that like someone like Casas and Meyer have like a little bit of an edge ceiling wise there because of that. I mean, just offensive ceiling. I mean, I'm not talking about like total game package because I think Carroll's a very good defender, but yeah.
Yep. All right. Next group is the Pirates, Gonzalez, Henry Davis, O'Neill Cruz.
That's Red Sox for me.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's Red Sox for me too. Here's one where I think I go the other team, Detroit Tigers, Spencer Torkelson, Green and Job. You gotta go Tigers.
You have to, because Torque and Green are both, I mean, good for the Tigers, by the way, if they actually do this. It seems like both are going to break camp with them, which is awesome.
That's great. I love that.
The Tigers
the new rules, man. I mean,
I don't know if it's new rules because O'Neill Cruz is going down, but I think it's
O'Neill Cruz wouldn't count because he debuted last year.
Oh, fair. You're right. No, I thought it was during their rookie years or something.
No, I think it's if you bring them up on opening day, and I guess so.
No, I think that's Riley one, Green. But then there's another one that's like if they they're something in their rookie years. But Riley Green, Torkelson, and Jackson Jobe. Green and Torque are potential very
both
good.
Top 5 MLB's list at least.
Yeah.
All right. One other group, a couple other groups that I think are worth mentioning: Giants, Marco Luciano, Joey Bart, and Matos.
No,
I go Red Sox there.
I don't think it's that close. I don't think Joey Bart's that good, and Luciano has seen his prospects stock fall some because of questions about his hit tool. Matos obviously is promising, but I think
Matos, he's so far away.
Yeah. I just think the Red Sox group is better there.
Yeah, and then the weird one with the Marlins is like I think you definitely take the Red Sox, but the fact that you basically like pick 3 Marlins if you go out to like 5,
it's like Max Meyer, Yuri Perez, and like I don't know. who's the hitter?
Khalil Watson.
Khalil Watson. Yeah,
Edward
you take
Cabrera.
the Red Sox. You take the Red Sox, but the
Sixto.
Marlins is an example. Well, Sixto's like injured, so I would not take him.
Yeah, I mean they've got 6 top 70 guys, but that's
Bleday was
I take
terrible
the Red Sox
last
top 3.
year. Yeah, it's just they don't have any elite guys yet. I mean, I think Yuri Perez might be elite. Like that dude is a horse, and he's just like he's 19. He's 19, 6'8", throwing like 99, just crazy. But I mean, if you told me Yuri Perez was like a top 10 prospect in all of baseball next year, I'd be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So I think the Marlins definitely has some room to grow, but I would take the Red Sox because pitching prospects, we've seen what happens to them, and it's not fun. I mean, just ask the Red Sox. So yeah, I would take a group of 3 hitters over that.
And then I think from there you get like the Tigers don't really have a third.
Well, no, you've already mentioned you already mentioned the Tigers,
or not the Tigers. I meant the Rangers. Sorry, I was thinking team. The Rangers don't really have a third behind Leiter and Jung. Like the Jays behind
Moreno and Orelvis. Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess you could go like Groshans, but like to me, I take the Red Sox 3. So yeah, I mean, but so who do we say you probably take the Diamondbacks, or maybe you take the Diamondbacks and you definitely take the Tigers. You definitely take the O's and the Tigers.
Yeah.
The Diamondbacks, it's close.
And the Mariners, it's close too.
And the Mariners, it's close. / maybe you take the Mariners. I think I take the Mariners, honestly.
And the impetus was this was a question I got on Twitter from, I want to give him a shout out. From Corey C 34 said, and the reason he asked is the part I think you were going to transition to was, would you think that Casas-Marcelo-Yorke has more potential than Moncada, Benintendi, and Devers?
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, and I mean that's. Because you had pointed out that big 3 is the best the Red Sox have had since late in the 2016 season, when they had the 3 guys who would go on that offseason, admittedly after the Chris Sale trade, to be the number 1, number 2, and number 18 prospects in baseball in Yohan Moncada, Andrew Benintendi, or I think it was actually Benintendi, Moncada, and then Sale.
Well, and then in Devers, in the midseason list that year, they were like 2-8 and like 16 or something. They were all in the top like 20 or 30 too.
Yeah. Because the midseason list, I think it's pre-draft, but then Devers.
No. It was post-draft. Benintendi was in it. Yeah, Benintendi was in the one. Oh,
Benintendi was that offseason, was that year. Okay.
Yeah, he was in the one I was looking at.
Well, right. I know he was in it, but okay. Yeah, so that makes sense, I guess. Yeah, I mean, at any rate, Benintendi was drafted in 15. And that's the 16 list, because that's why he was at the top of it, because he had played. So I don't know. At any rate, it doesn't matter. Clearly the best top 3 since then. Before that, I think you're going back to like 05, 06. Like you're talking like Ellsbury era. Maybe 07. Maybe 07, you're talking Buchholz era. Like that's how far back you're going. Comparing that system to the current top 3. I mean, for me, and we talked about this earlier, I don't think it's a question, and it may surprise people, but I think it's very clearly the Benintendi, Moncada, Devers group.
Yeah, I mean, the Red Sox would be thrilled if they could have one of these guys turn into Devers, and Devers already is that. And frankly, they'd be thrilled if all 3 of them just turned into like Moncada, Benintendi type of players, kind of like not stars, but like solid regulars. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty clear that you take those 3. And what is the saying? Like a bird in hand is worth 2 in the bush or something.
I mean, yeah, but I think
like we know what those guys are now. So you kind of have to.
Well, I wouldn't even go that way. I mean, I think it's comparing them where they were then versus now. You had in Benintendi and Moncada, the top 2 prospects in baseball by the end of the year. And Devers at 18, I think is comparable to what Casas and Meyer are now, never mind Yorke. You know, if you take the present value of those guys, then I don't think it's necessarily based on what Devers turned into, but you had 3 guys that were, I mean, probably at the time, you're probably putting you're at least putting 60s on Benintendi and Moncada at that point, right?
I mean, yeah, I guess in the offseason, though, at that point, Moncada obviously wasn't on the team anymore. But like, yeah, I mean, even if you're going back to the like 2016 beginning of the season rankings, all of them are in the top 25. York's not like a consensus top 25 guy yet. I mean, I think his range is what, in like the 20s to the 50s.
Yeah, I think
So
York's the clear sixth player here, which is part of the reasoning.
it's like the three of them, I think, were like all like in that range of where Casas and Meyer are, for the most part. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I remember when we were trying to determine whether Moncada or Benintendi was the top prospect in the system. And that following off season, they're vying for the top prospect in the game, right? So, yeah, I mean, but that's not a knock on this group. I mean, this group, it's a tremendous group. It's the best trio they've had in a while. It's one of the best they've had during the whole Sox prospects era. I think that the issue that they're dealing with is what's behind them. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we talk rankings on either the next episode or the one after, whenever we have the rankings discussion. So, yeah, it's a great group. We liked what we saw out of them down there. Let's kind of go lightning round, Ian, with what we saw at each level. And I guess we can start in AAA. And we'll each take a guy, the two that we listed for AAA, because AAA was kind of tough just because it was so thinned out by who was up in Major League camp and who was up on a given day, who was around. The two guys we listed here were Jeter Downs and Ryan Fitzgerald. You could take your pick with which one of those that you want to take on what we saw out of them. It's really one up, one down, I think, with these two.
I agree. Jeter Downs, it's
not good.
We talked about it, that I think we talked a couple episodes ago that, coming into the season, one of the things we wanted to see from him were like, what type of adjustments did he make at the plate? And I think the thing that was most disappointing to me was when he was in those early spring training games, it didn't look like he really made any adjustments. His swing and everything was still the same, and he was still getting beat by the exact same pitches. He had 6 strikeouts and 9 at bats in his first 5 spring training games. And I think it's pretty, and this was against an opponent quality of 5.4. So he's not exactly facing like major league, true major league quality pitchers. So the fact that he was still getting beat by like 92, 93 up on the hands was very concerning to me. And I think it was telling that he was in that first round of cuts, even though he's on the 40-man. Like, that's not a great sign.
Yep.
And you take it down to minor league camp, and I think it was just, a lot of the same was what I saw when I saw him there. And the interesting thing to me is at the end of camp on our last day there, he switched it up. He was open. He was using a big leg kick.
Right.
And one of the reasons you do that is to get to that inside fastball. You get a better look at it. You're able to leach out a little earlier with your front side. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does with the swing mechanics when the regular season starts, because definitely what he was doing, at the beginning of spring training was not working. And obviously what he did last year didn't work. And he's in, very precarious. He's in a tough place with his prospect status, on the 40-man already. The clock is ticking, and the type of player that we saw, earlier in this camp did not look like a major league caliber player. So it's going to be a big season for him. And we'll see if these changes that he seemed to be making and kind of like finally tweaking things hold, and if they can kind of help him unlock some of that potential. Cause I still think it's in there. It's just with his currents, with what his swing was before, I didn't think he would ever be able to hit major league quality stuff. And that's why he's just such a hard player to rank for me. Like, I have no idea what to do with him.
Yeah, I mean, the image for me of Downs from camp is going to be him swinging and missing at a fastball up. I saw that happen every day.
Yeah,
it's an obvious hole that I
Well, it's up and in, like it's both of those. It's like it's like the inverted L of like the inner half and the top third. It's just he really struggles with those two zones, and they're not two zones, those two areas. And I don't like. He's not a good enough defender to overcome being a zero at the plate. Like, there are certain guys that if you're a good enough defender, you can fake it at the major league level.
I guess, but
he's not like, it's a potential, maybe like you can put like a 55 if you're feeling generous on him defensively. It's more like a 50 to me. So he's got to hit. And I'm not comfortable projecting that with what he currently is, we'll be able to hit again at the major league level. But as I've always said, like, caveat is that, he's one swing change away. If he can figure out that swing, then who knows what he can tap into, because he's definitely talented. And I still think it's in there. It's just, I'm getting to the point where I wonder if it might be a change of scenery needed situation.
But, I mean, the change of scenery thing is so weird. He's been traded.
But the same thing is,
already.
I know, and I don't think he wants to get traded again.
No, I don't think he does either. So
it's like, It's tough. It's a really tough one. And I'm hopeful that, with whatever he was working with at the end, if he actually tries that out in game, hopefully that'll
I almost
click.
wonder, is he like gun shy from being traded twice? It's weird. I don't know. At any rate, the other guy that we highlighted from there is a completely different story. And Ryan Fitzgerald, who was the talk of camp,
please refer to him by his Boston name.
Fitzy. Yeah. Fitzy. It's a match made for Boston, honestly. And look, we had a lot of people who thought he was going to break camp with the club. I don't think it was ever going to happen. He's barely played AAA. And I'm saying like folks on Twitter who are like tweeting at us or posting in the forum. The problem is he's barely played at all in AAA. He needs time there. He's still working on, defense at other positions than shortstop, where he just doesn't have a ton of experience. He can play the outfield. He can play the infield. He'll get there. But I do want to see him get more seasoning in AAA. And I think he's a guy who, if you're the Red Sox, you're really hoping for him to take a bench spot in 2023. I think that's in the cards potentially, depending on how he does this year.
I think he's in the cards that he takes a bench spot in 2022.
That's true. I mean, he could be up this year for sure, depending on how things go.
I think that he does. My comparison is he does a lot of what Travis Shaw does in that he's got legit power from the left side, especially. And I think it was Bradford talked to him and he was talking about how he basically just tries to go up there and hit a home run every time.
Yeah. Yep.
But it kind of works for him. And you can see it with a swing. Like he's a drop in the bucket, and drop that back shoulder and try to lift the ball. But it's been working for him. And we saw in spring training, I think he was leading the Grapefruit League in home runs after the first couple of weeks. And I think that, at the worst case, he's someone who can give you position versatility and hit righties. I'm not sure he can hit lefties, but he'll be able to give you a little pop from the right side of the plate. And frankly, that, that's the type of player you can keep on a bench for a while. And that's what Travis Shaw is supposed to give them. And eventually, I think I could see him being the one who ends up grabbing that role as the left-handed pinch hitter, position, but he's got more position versatility.
And then the thing with Fitzgerald, yes, he does go up there and try and hit home runs every time, but it's not that he's not cerebral. He's very
he's a big he's like a modern baseball player almost in the sense that he's willing to tweak things. He's big into watching all his at bats back, all the advanced video stuff they have. Maximizing everything that he can do with his swing. So
the torpedoes, drop the back shoulder and just try and hit, slow pitch.
No, I mean, he does do that, but it's controlled. It's controlled.
It's based on a plan. It's not based on I don't care. I'm just going to go up and, whatever. So,
and obviously his K rate a little high for my liking, but it wasn't terrible last year. I think it was in the 20s. Yeah. It's playable. I think he'll definitely have swing and miss. I'm trying to bring it up. It was 18.6% in AA, which is fine. That's you 23-ish at the major league level on average about. AAA was 27%. Granted, it was, 47 plate appearances. So you can't really take too much away from that. But that'd be the one thing I would be watching is my biggest thing. And I think that part of the reason he was sent down is they want to see the hit tool get better. And I want to see what it looks like in, his first full season in AAA.
Moving down to AA, the hitter that made the most noise in the literal sense was Brandon Howlett, who we just saw hit bombs on multiple days, just hitting the ball hard. Hit one really deep home run over everything to left. I think the first day I was there, if I remember right. And then he had, I think, a couple more doubles in that game. And the next day I saw him hit a couple doubles. Was just hitting the ball really hard. But that said, the good with the bad, the defense at third is still very meh.
I saw him make several errors. Yeah.
It's kind of rough over there. So I don't know if it's a move him to left guy. Probably. I don't think he's a move. But the thing is,
I think it might be first base, but if you have to move to first base or left, there's just so much more pressure on the bat.
Yeah, exactly.
And, we've seen him go. I feel like he's been pretty streaky in his, early career.
That's the other problem.
And, he goes through these runs where he gets really locked in. He makes a ton of hard contact and he's got legit raw power. It's plus raw power. And he can really, when he hits the ball and makes contact, it's really hard. The problem is just that, 32% strikeout rate last year.
Yeah. He's got to hit.
It's just unacceptable. You can't have the highest rate that you're looking at in the minors that is usually playable with certain. There's obviously exceptions. Bobby Dahlbeck is an exception. There's certain guys who are exceptions, but for the most part, you're looking like 25, 28% is as high as you'd like to see. And you don't really like that, but you can work with it. Like he's above 30%. He's got to really cut that down. And unfortunately for me, it's one of these things where I need to see him cut his strikeout rate considerably over an extended period of time before I'm going to be comfortable buying back in or moving him out into the top 50 of my rankings.
Yep. And then just to be clear, what we're doing here are just some guys who stood out in one way or another, not necessarily the best player we saw. And the pitcher that we both kind of gravitated to from the Double-A roster was a reliever who's probably going to be in Greenville, and Jacob Webb. Webb was the guy they drafted last year. I think
I saw him last year too.
7th rounder, right?
No. He was post 10th round out of NC State.
Okay. But at any rate, we saw him the first day I was there. He
14th round.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. 91 to 95 with the fastball, slider at 83 to 85. That was somewhere between 11 to 5 and 10 to 4, and a changeup in the upper 80s. Huge body. I mean, it's just a very imposing body. I can only imagine the extension he's getting.
I mean, he's like 6'5", 6'6", 260. He's massive.
He's the pitcher version of Casas, almost a little bit as maybe the body.
And he was someone that scouts. He was someone that scouts who had seen the their minor league team before I got there had basically said to me, like, this is a guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
And
I think rank him. I'm going to.
And I think it kind of just trends with, like, they've done a very good job of drafting hard throwing righties and developing hard throwing righties. And, it's another one of my kind of takeaways from spring training that I don't know if we'll get to, but just there's a lot of hard throwing righties in the system who are potential relievers, and Webb just it's kind of like the low minors version of that. Cause I think he'll probably start in Greenville.
Right. Going to the high A team. Let's start with the hitter everyone wants to hear about, Ian. I'll throw him to you. Who's going to be the third baseman in Salem, and Blaze Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic batting practice. He hits absolute bombs in batting practice, and he hits everything hard. And that's good. You like to see that. I would say his game performance was inconsistent. He hit some balls hard. There was some swing and miss. Third base was okay. Fair. It wasn't great.
It's not get him off the position immediately, but it's not like.
That's what I was going to say is he looked better than I was expecting, but I was expecting him not to be able to play third base.
Right.
And I'm not sure he can long term, but I think he might be able to try it out for this year, and we'll see what happens, and maybe even next year.
And he's already got the first baseman's glove, so it's not like the team is committed to him as a third baseman.
Well, I think I saw him play some first base, but
he played last year.
The thing is, him and Tyler Miller look so much alike. It's hard to. That's true. It's hard from far away.
If you're not seeing them up close, that's true. That's a good point.
Especially with the Red Sox, numbers and names are quite difficult to read for some of us. On the uniforms, the dark blue with the red is just tough.
Yeah.
So, but I will say, Jordan, the power is 100% real, and he's going to hit some absolute monster home runs this year. But it's just going to come down to the hit tool and the defense, because right now the power is the carrying tool. But other than that, there's still work to be done. But he's definitely an interesting guy, and someone who I'm excited to see how it translates into regular season action when he heads down to Salem, Virginia, most likely, or not most likely, definitely.
Definitely. Yeah, no question. And then a guy that I saw for the first time was someone you saw last year, I think, Ian, and a pitcher in Wyatt.
I did.
He was the 7th rounder. Or
correct.
6th. He was 7th?
Nope, 7th.
Okay.
7th out of the University of Oklahoma.
Oh, Oklahoma. Yeah. He's interesting. It's a tough arm slot, especially. I mean, I think
it's a brutal arm slot.
I think there's no question he's a major league reliever at worst for 100%. A cup of coffee. It's a tough arm slot. He's maybe you can.
It's like Tanner Houck arm slot.
Yeah, it's Tanner Houck arm slot without the extension to the side because he doesn't have the height.
No, he's 6 foot.
He's not coming from third base.
No, but he still cuts across his body.
But it's coming across the body. It's a crossfire action.
Across the what?
Across the body. What did I say?
The Barty.
It definitely didn't come out clean. I know.
No, you said the Barty, which I enjoyed. I was like, oh, we in
Barty
Ireland.
Is yes. Yeah. Anyway, turbo sinker at 95 to 96. That definitely.
I saw him. I saw him up to 97.
It's interesting. Yeah. It's a good. And then
I think the slide was 88
to 90.
No, the funniest part was I don't know. One of his, I don't know if I think it was maybe his brother or teammate or something responded was like only 91 with like a laughing emoji. And then was like, you can do better than that. And I'm pretty sure he was basically inferring like he's thrown it harder than that.
The slider.
So yeah. So when you're throwing like a slider already, like 88 to 91,
you saw 91. I didn't see that.
Yeah, I saw 91.
All right.
And it's hard.
Varying shape.
Yeah.
I saw one that was 12-6. I saw one that was more 10-4.
He might have just it.
They
were all pretty sweepy for me.
I'm not saying it's all on purpose,
but like it flashed, like I would say it flashed like above average to plus, and then you're topping it with a power sinker at like 95 to 97.
Yep.
And the changeup, it's interesting. He has an arm slot and kind of he pronate. If he threw a couple, it was 89 to 90, not good.
Maybe that's what I saw. That was 12-6. It was probably the changeup.
He pronates his wrist in his delivery, and that actually is something that lends itself well to a changeup.
Yeah.
But I just don't think he has feel for it yet. I didn't see him. Like I saw him last year throw 3 innings. He didn't throw a changeup once. And in this one, he threw, I want to say 3 and a bit innings. I only saw 2. So I think it's something he's working on. And I actually do like starting him. And this is why, because if you throw him in 1 or 2 inning things, he's never going to throw that changeup because he's just going to get guys out with his fastball and a slider. And so I'm fine with him starting, even though I think he's a reliever long term, because he needs to work on that changeup. He needs to work on his command. And if he can do those things, I actually do think he's someone who could be like a multi-inning guy. I think the stuff is good enough that it could play in like a 2-inning role. Yep. So I like keeping him stretched out and kind of helping him develop that third pitch, because the one good thing is if he doesn't get the changeup, I saw him get that slider buried deep into lefties, which is a position you really want to see. He was like back footing it down and into them, or even front footing it. He could land it in the zone for strikes too. And so if he's doing that against lefties, that's really good because the pitch is devastating against righties. Like I put a clip on Twitter of it, and this righty it was an atrocious swing. Like he just had no chance on it. And so if he can get that pitch, if he has the confidence in that pitch to get it, throw it to both righties and lefties and get both of them out with it, the changeup doesn't become as much of an issue. But if he can get the changeup, then it gets super interesting because you're talking about like, a guy who, even if he can just get it to average, you're talking about a guy who has 3 pitches, who can pitch multiple innings from a brutal arm slot for both, just really off-putting for both sides. Like, I think he's a really interesting guy. He's someone I think I had ranked like last time near the bottom, but he's someone who I'm going to be moving up, a little bit just because I think there's a lot to work with there.
I liked what I saw out of him a lot. I thought it was great. And then I guess moving down to Salem, which is mostly going to be guys who are in the Florida Complex League. Although I'm very interested to see what they do with this first guy, Ian. Maybe kind of I don't know if he was the biggest, I don't know what it would be, story, catch, what it would be for us, but like Miguel Bleis, outfielder who the Red Sox signed for $1.5 million in January of 2021, played in the Dominican Summer League last year. We already had him 15th, and I think he's going to move into the top 10 probably.
He's definitely moving the top 10. I think he's not going to be as high as people want him to be, but
he's going to move up.
But the reasoning behind it is sound, and we can, I don't know if we probably save it.
Just tell me what you saw more of him. So talk to me about Bleis, Miguel Bleis, who we have to agree to.
No, it's actually Bleis. It's actually Bleis. Like it's confusing.
It's going to be horrible. Anyway, it's worse than Sam Travis and Travis.
Well, and I'll tell this story. I told Chris this. I was having a conversation with a scout, and we legitimately went like 5 minutes, and we were talking about Bleis. One of us was talking about Bleis Jordan, the other one was talking about Miguel Bleis, and we didn't realize because we were both calling him Bleis. So yeah, it's confusing, but he's very promising. He was obviously their big money signing in 2021. And I thought it was interesting that he was getting, in the Salem game, he's hitting third in every game. He's playing center field. He's getting, he's playing more or less the whole game, every time. And it's pretty clear that they're on the fence with him going to Salem. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think that it was definitely something that was under consideration or is under consideration.
I don't know that I agree with that necessarily. I could see them doing it, but I didn't necessarily get that sense just because he was playing that much. I have my own theory. I'll let you finish, but it could be. It certainly could be.
I mean, I think he's polished enough that he could handle it. I don't think they'll do it just because they've just, that's not something that their MO. Mm-hmm. But it's just it's when we talk about like 5 tool guys, there's not very many, in the minors, or let alone the Red Sox system. Like, I can't really remember the last true 5-tool talent they had. Yeah, I don't know. But he couldn't throw. It's a 30 arm too.
Yeah. Moncada.
Yeah, I guess maybe Moncada. But
maybe Moncada.
But like Miguel Blaze, he can, if he reaches his ceiling is right up there with the big three. It's 60 plus ceiling. Odds of that reaching that obviously very low. But you saw it. It's just an electric swing. He's got plus bat speed already. Approach is surprisingly good for someone his age. He's still going to, swing at some bad pitches, has some trouble with breaking balls, but he seems to know the strike zone at least, which is obviously encouraging for someone his age.
Yeah.
And just when he makes contact, it's hard contact. It's just, he hits the ball really hard. And he's just like a menace on the base paths. It's just like, I'm on first base. What am I going to do? Oh, I'm stealing second on the first pitch. And I saw him do that like 4 times.
I saw him steal third.
And exactly. He's on base. He's going.
It's not 80 speed, but he's
it's not.
confident.
It's probably, I didn't get a great time on him because he kept hitting doubles, or he kept hitting the ball like super hard. Right. But I would say it's like 60 probably.
That's where I would have put it too. I would have pegged it at 60. He didn't strike me as Duran where you're like, oh, okay.
No, but like he can run, and in the field, he gets good. He got pretty good reads when I was out there. Like,
so
looked good in center field. The arm looked good. I would say at least average on the arm, maybe a tick above.
And in the field, he glides. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
It's effortless. It's not Jackie Bradley, but
no. But it's not like it's better than like my comparison point is like Gilberto Jimenez, like what he was doing. And back when he was like, I thought a better defender than he is now. Like, he wouldn't glide to the ball, but he just was really fast, so he can make up for it. Blaze is like he's getting there, and it's long strides because he's like 6'2". Got a lot. I think there's still projection in the frame, especially in the upper body.
I think I kind of have it. Is it almost like CJ Chatham at short, but in the outfield?
Like the long stride. Yeah.
It's he gets there. It doesn't look effortful, but he can cover ground.
And like, I saw him make a great diving play in center field where he's charging in on a ball. And it's just, it's a very impressive skill set. The ceiling is very high. He's a long way away. Like, we're years away. And there's a lot of risk, obviously. We've seen these guys flame out, but if you had to like build like a starter set for a prospect that you kind of want in the system, this is the guy. And
it's pretty close. Yeah.
You could make the case to put him at 4. I don't want to do that yet.
Close to that yet, but
because
the argument
at the end of the day, and I was running like this by some people today, and they all came back with the same thing. Is like, obviously we all know the talent, like the some of the stuff that the numbers being thrown around for grades on him were borderline irresponsible, but it was, at the end of the day, you have to see it to believe it. And I need to see him do it in stateside game action before I'm willing to put the rocket ship to him. But if you told me by like August, he was up in Greenville hitting like 280 with
Greenville or Salem.
Sorry, Salem. Excuse me. Salem. Excuse me. If you told me by like the end of, August, we're approaching September for those last couple of weeks, and he's in Salem hitting, 280 with like 8 home runs and 12 to 15 stolen bases in 90 or in like 70 games, I'd be like, yeah, I believe that. And if he's doing that, he's going to be a top like 50 national prospect.
Yeah, and I think what they would like him to do is to keep him in extended and do what happened with Eduardo Lopez last year. Though Lopez was a year older, in that he earns his way up to Salem. And maybe there's someone from Salem who can move up, because Salem's going to have a pretty full outfield potentially as well.
I mean, but I will say the one thing with Blaze is that if he's ready, he's not getting blocked. Like,
I think that's right. I don't think there's any chance he breaks camp with them, but he could get there some point this year.
Actually, he's listed at 6'3" on MLB. I didn't think he was 6'3". He might be though. But I mean, and this is the other thing you got to remember. He's going to play this entire season at 18. He just turned 18. So
the internal roster has him at 6'3", 170.
Okay, that's what MLB has him. Yeah, I mean, maybe 6'2", 6'3", same thing. Definitely not saying that.
I thought I had an inch on him. Maybe not.
I mean, but I'm taller than you, so we'll see. That's what TV said. But yeah, I mean, he's going to play this entire season 18. If he doesn't get to Salem till midseason, or even if he doesn't get to Salem, it's not the end of the world. Like,
that's true.
he's a very exciting guy and someone I'm definitely looking forward to getting more reports on and hopefully getting to see as the season progresses.
And the last guy I'm going to kick it to you. Let's go lightning round on him and get to some emails is Jedickson Paez, because I didn't get to see him at all. Paez is 18, pitched last year in the Dominican Summer League after getting a $450,000 bonus, struck out 49 and walked 9 and 50 in a third innings, had a very good debut in the DSL. And you liked what you saw out of him in his first experience stateside.
Yes, he was someone who
training at least.
Yeah, he was someone who's put on our radar coming out of the DSL last year. And the biggest thing, though, that we told is he needs to add velocity because he was like 84 to 86. And he's added some velocity. He was 88 to 90. He has pretty good feel for his secondary pitches. And I think that was the thing that really stood out. You could throw like 55, 60 on both his changeup and his curveball. Mm-hmm. But the problem is right now he's working with like a 30 fastball.
Yeah.
But I mean, he throws a ton of strikes. Like he just pounds the strike zone. He can get guys out because his curveball and changeup are so advanced that he can, get by with middling velocity. And it's just a projection play. Like if he can add strength and get that velocity up into like the low to mid 90s, then he's a guy who belongs in the top 30 prospects in the system. But it's so hard. There just aren't very many guys who can get by pitching at 88 to 91, let alone, 88 to 90, let alone as like 18-year-olds, seeing that. So it's just, we need to see some improvement with the velocity, but the rest of the package is really interesting. I love the secondaries. I love the command profile. There's a lot to like there. And he's someone who I'm excited to see how it translates, because if he can, kind of still get guys out with that middling fastball, if that comes and he continues to improve like he did this year, getting a full grade in a year, then in a couple of years, especially as we've seen them have guys add velocity before, like Brian Bayo is a good example. He's someone who started out when I first saw him was 91 and 93 by the time. Now he's, mid to high 90s. So he's a very interesting guy and someone that I'm looking forward to seeing how he handles his first, stateside kind of transitions to the FCL.
Yep. And if you liked all that, make sure you support us on patreon.com/SoxProspects at the $2 level. We're going to have some more content for all of our Patreon backers. Stuff that'll eventually wind up here in the show, but if you want to hear it now, that's what we're going to put probably twice as much as we just did here. Plenty more to talk about from our trip. Really quick, let's get to some emails. Ian, if you want to, I almost called you Ethan because our first email comes from Ethan. Our email address is podcast@SoxProspects.com. We want to talk about what you want to hear about, so hit us up there. Ian, our first email, as I mentioned, is from Ethan. He says, when is the right time to start looking at how a prospect factors into a big league team's write-up? Is now the big league team's write-ups lineup? Is now the right time to do that with Casas? If Nick Yorke continues on his current trajectory, when is the right time for him? Additionally, how good does a prospect need to be to evaluate how he fits in versus just letting him force his way in like Duran last year? Ian, I think the last question kind of hits on it. I think it's, you want the guy to force his way in and tell you when he's ready. I think that's the goal, right?
Yeah. I mean, you honestly, like, for the Red Sox case, I do think some teams like plan out positions. Like the Yankees are clearly doing it with shortstop with Anthony Volpe.
Yeah. Peraza, but
right. But I think with the Red Sox case, it's, you let them force the issue, and you don't really start planning about it until they're ready to go. And then once they are, you figure it out. But, maybe it like can influence. I mean, I think it's a good example is this, that, 2 of their top 3 prospects are middle infielders and they went out and gave Trevor Story a 6-7 year deal, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, I think that illustrates that, they're not worried about that right now. They'll cross that bridge when they get there.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. As far as now the right time to do that with Casas, I think that's what they're doing. That's why they weren't going to go get Freddie Freeman. Like they've got Dahlbeck. They're going to give Dahlbeck some run, but they were never going to go get him or trade for Olsen or anything like that. I think that was never on the table because they've got Casas right about there and they know that he's going to be ready pretty soon, ideally. So thanks for the question, Ethan. Our next email comes from, the account is Genesis Arc. Says, hello, Chris and Ian. With Duran, Casas, and maybe Downs graduating this year, as well as arms such as Siebold, Winkowski, and Crawford, I was wondering which prospects you think are most likely to take their spots in the prospect rankings. There's the obvious choices such as Marcelo Mayer and Nick Yorke moving up to 1 and 2. But then there are other possibilities such as Alex Binelas having another good year and moving up the board. There's also Anderso Lira, who I've heard you mention as the only true two-way catching prospect in the system. So is he another name to focus on? Love your work on the podcast, and thanks for continuing to put it out. Thanks for the email. I mean, I think you're going to see when we update the rankings. I mean, I think that the boring answer is you just move everyone in that ranking up, and that's why they're ranked there, right? Ideally, if someone moves, if someone graduates, everyone else moves up. But I guess maybe guys who we can maybe project to move a bit in the coming ranking. Blaze is probably one. We have some ideas for some who'll move up. I don't know how much we want to give away this episode, Ian, versus making the people wait a little bit, but
Brandon Walter
probably moves up. That's true.
Rafaela.
Ceddanne Rafaela, good call. And there's some guys lower down. I mean, they're not going to move up to the tippity top, but we
mentioned, like Wyatt Olds as well.
Wyatt Olds will move up. Brandon Webb, Adrian Hernandez
Jacob Webb,
is a
not Brandon
guy.
Webb.
Jacob Webb. Did I call him Brandon?
Yep.
Sorry, Jacob Webb. Thank you. There are guys we saw who move up into the back end of the rankings.
And I think we can touch on just the the final part of that tweet I had today was that the FCL and DSL classes, and we didn't really get too in depth with them. There's a lot of talent there, a lot. And it's not guys that are going to get other than Blaze, it's not guys who are going to be in like the top 20 or top 30 even. But there's a lot of guys who can fit into that 40 to 60 range, 40 to 70 range, might not crack the top 60, but who are really interesting and
could pop.
Were impressive in camp. And it's just going to take some time, guys like Juan Chacon, Ravello, there are some other guys too.
Luis Ravello, the shortstop. Who was in the DSL
so
last year.
I would say that those are the guys to watch. And we'll kind of talk about it. You'll see it in the rankings, when we get more in depth with it. But I think that group is very talented. And I think if you're, that's where the next wave of guys are going to come from, I think, is from that international class or international classes, plus stateside also with a few guys obviously Blaze is part of that FCL class. So guys like that.
Well put. And I think another group that I'd keep an eye on is the kind of A-ball middle infield / up the middle group. The guys, like you mentioned, like Rafaela, Briner Bonasi, who else? Edinson Paulino,
Lugo,
guys like that.
Meyer.
Yeah, Matthew Lugo. I mean, obviously Meyer's already there, but yeah, that whole crew. And even maybe if you want to kind of sort of loop Christian Koss in, even though he's going to be in Double-A, I could see someone popping from that group, not to the very top of the rankings, but into the teens for sure, even the high or low teens, however you want to.
I mean, I'll say one of the names you just mentioned, I have in the teens already. So
yeah, well, I mean, I think teens being broad. I mean, some of them are in there already, and have been. But I'm saying I could see in that kind of 14, 13, maybe even 12.
Yeah, I mean, it's just he's a guy who's currently outside the top 20 who I have well into the teens now. So yeah,
who?
Rafaela.
No, Rafael. Yeah, that's fair. All right, our next email is from Ben. He says, "Hi guys, is it safe to assume we are in for a couple of down years, given the strength of the division and lack of spending / proximity of top prospects from the bigs in Meyer and Yorke? Next year's free agent class is also fairly weak in terms of high-end talent. I'm having a hard time seeing how we outpace the Blue Jays, Yankees, and Rays over the next few years, given our current situation. Any thoughts?" Ian, this kind of email was a sentiment I saw a lot on Twitter, saw a lot on our forum of everyone in the division is passing us by, us being the Red Sox. I don't think that's the case.
I don't either.
You look at the Blue Jays might have had the best offseason.
I think the Blue Jays are the best team in the division.
I agree. I
don't think the Yankees are a
complete team without question.
I don't think the Yankees are as good as people think they are.
I don't either. I think the Rays are in trouble, especially now that Fairbanks is going on the IL too. They're starting the year without Baz, Glasnow, Anderson, and now Fairbanks. Their
Meadows is hurt too.
Yeah, I think they're not as deep as they probably want to be, especially now they're getting hit by injuries.
But the Rays also
with an extra wild card too.
The Rays will find 6 relievers we've never heard of who will put up a sub-2 ERA. I think the Rays are good. I think that they're a solid team, but I do think they have major questions. Like, look at their starting rotation. Can you name their starting 5 pitchers?
I know because I looked earlier. It includes Luis Patino, Drew Rasmussen,
Corey Kluber, and Ryan Yarbrough.
McClanahan's
going to be a monster. Like, I think he's very good.
Yeah.
But their number 3 starter projected right now is Corey Kluber. Their number 2 is Drew Rasmussen, who threw like 70 innings last year.
Yeah.
Like, they have serious question marks on that team. And the Yankees, I mean,
their rotation, man.
Their rotation is a problem.
Beyond Cole, beyond Kermit.
They have Garrett Cole. They have Tyon, who I think is fine. And I think Jordan Montgomery's fine. I don't think they're anything special.
Yep.
But they're, Nestor Cortez, who I guess he was fine last year, but we'll see. And Luis Severino, who knows what he's going to be. Then you go to the bullpen. Like, obviously they have a solid bullpen. Like, don't get me wrong. That's a good team. But the lineup, there's a lot of old guys who get hurt in that lineup. Like Aaron Judge, Stanton, Donaldson, Aaron Hicks. That's 4 projected starters who all have missed considerable time in the last couple of years. Like, there's a lot of risk with that team. They don't have a lot of like, they're running out. Old friend Marwin Gonzalez is projected to make their bench. So,
right. I mean, I think what happens with Red Sox fans is we get this myopic view of the Red Sox roster. And if it's not the 2018 team, the Red Sox are going to stink. And look, I think they made the offense worse going from Renfroe to Bradley, but it's an upgrade going from Arroyo or whoever was going to start at second to Story. It's a big upgrade. I think the offense is fine with the Story signing, and we'll see what else they do to shore it up. But I'm not look, the bullpen is an issue, but again, I think that's going to be a work in progress as the season goes on as well. So look, I think they're world beaters? No. I think they're going to make the playoffs? Yeah, I do.
Well, and I think if you look at like the projected standings on like Fangraphs, for example,
what are they now after Story? I don't think I've looked.
They have the Blue Jays at 92 wins, the Yankees at 91 wins, the Red Sox at 87 wins, and the Rays at 86 wins. Like that's within the margin for error.
That sounds right.
And so, well, I think the Blue Jays are the best team in the division. I still think, I don't think they're going to run away with it necessarily. And I think that, all of those teams are going to be fighting to the end.
Mm-hmm. Our next email comes from Barry, and at the beginning of the email, it's a lot of the same sort of thing. So it was, why are they afraid to make a move in free agency? Obviously they made one signing Story, and that's been the benefit of it. But then he also said a few podcasts ago, you mentioned Sean Murphy from the A's as a target at catcher. And I like the move, but got to wondering what it would realistically take to get him. And would Ramon Laureano also be available after suspension? If free agency is out, would the best route be Tommy Pham? Obviously he went elsewhere. What about Brad Miller for a utility infielder? He went elsewhere. But as far as the Murphy thing, I think we might have talked about it a little bit. I mean, I don't know. What do you think that would take, Ian, to get a Sean Murphy? I mean, I think at that point you're clearly.
It's a lot. Like he's way better than I think people realize. Like if you go by like the baseball trade values thing, like I'm pretty sure I was playing around with it a couple days ago. And to get him, you're talking about like it was like Houck, Duran, and Moore was not enough.
Sounds right. Yeah, I think that's what you're talking.
Like
because the problem, and this is where the problem is, Ian. What we were talking about during the trip, and what we'll talk about, I'm sure, next episode. That gap between Yorke and Duran or whoever you have next, because that's the guy you would trade, the guy that's missing that 50. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so like here, so they have him at like his surplus trade value is like 59.3. It's like one of the highest in like one of the top, like I think like 20 or so highest in the thing. Like he's such a good defender that I think he would be tough for them to trade, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I just the fit would be tough. It would be great if they could get somebody like that, but we'll have to see. Our next email comes from Emiliano, and he says, knowing Tanner Houck is going to be in the rotation come April 7th, I was wondering how his splitter has developed. The splitter will be key with him getting lefties out and going deeper into games. So I wanted to know your thoughts on whether it'll be good enough to do that this season. Thanks and greetings from Mexico. This is enviado desde mi iPhone. Haven't seen a lot of it at camp, obviously, myself, Ian. I don't know how much of today's game you were able to watch. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's improving by leaps and bounds, and that's why he's getting whacked the second time through the order.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, it's the same thing. It's like second time through the order, his walks have been bad. I think he has 8 walks in like 4 innings this spring. Like, I understand why they're putting him in the rotation. I do think it was interesting how early they said it. And I do wonder if part of it is that Houck views himself as a starter, whereas Whitlock seems a little more like, I don't know if he's more flexible, but like he obviously pitched in the bullpen last year. So maybe he's just more open to it.
Yeah.
But
what's funny is the next email is about Whitlock. So
I do think that this is a big year for Houck. He's being given this opportunity in the rotation, and it seems like the Red Sox obviously and understandably would love for him to grab one of those rotation spots to the point where like when Sale comes back, they bump Hill or Walker rather than him.
Yep.
But I still just, in the back of my mind, it just sticks that, you know, those splits just are hard to ignore.
Yeah.
And it's not just, you know, a 1-year sample. He's done this entire way up the system. And I've seen him be so effective in those short stints that I do wonder like how good he could be if they threw him just 2 to 3 inning stints the entire season out of the bullpen. But at the same time, a starter is more valuable than that role still. So we'll see what he does. But yeah, we'll see.
Which is funny because the next email is from Kevin and it says question regarding Garrett Whitlock's usage by the Red Sox. When you just, by the way, he says, hi, Ian and Chris. So that's for you. When you discuss pitching prospects, you often talk about how a potential starter has way more value than a reliever. This has led me to believe that a great reliever, short of an elite closer, isn't worth as much as a not great but solid starter. Sounds about right, Ian?
I think a good example is like an elite closer is like a 55, maybe like around there.
60 if it's like a best closer in the game type. Like
but like I would say like a solid above average closer is like a 55, 50.
Yep.
Like a 50 is like a 4th, 5th starter.
Yeah.
About that's like a 4th.
Is like a clear 3rd.
Yeah, it's like a
3-2.
Yeah.
Type. So anyways, he says, if that's true, I guess you'll tell me if it's not, then why do so many writers, including us, want Whitlock to remain in the bullpen this season? Wouldn't having him start and replacing him in the pen be easier than having Whitlock relieve and finding another starter? There doesn't seem to be enough starters in the league. Do we really think Rich Hill, Michael Wacha, and Nick Pivetta will all be better than Whitlock? If he does need to remain in the bullpen, when will the Red Sox ever decide it's time to start him? They always want a dependable fireman in the bullpen, and wouldn't having a year of experience starting Whitlock be better when all of the current Red Sox pitchers' contracts end at the end of this season versus having him be an unknown as a starter? Educate me, says Kevin. One thing is what we said, that he's a known commodity in the bullpen.
Yeah, I don't
shaky bullpen situation for one.
Yeah, I think it's just a very case dependent situation, or case dependent. And with the Red Sox currently, they did sign these guys who can start, and the guys they signed who can start will not be as good in the bullpen as Whitlock can be.
Because we know
what Whitlock can be. Rich Hill hasn't pitched out of the bullpen really. Wacha was not good out of the bullpen last year with the Rays.
Yep.
And Pivetta has been their best starter this spring, so he's obviously not going to be there. So whereas Whitlock, we know what he can be out of the bullpen. And I think that the difference between if you start Whitlock and whoever you're replacing him in the bullpen is versus if you start, one of those other guys and keep Whitlock in the pen, like that second scenario is a lot more advantageous to your team. Would I like to see him start? Yes, I think he can be a starter. But I think at the end of the day, they need to do what's best for the current team. And with the roster construction, I think at least initially, the best role for him is going to be in the bullpen. But if they decided to start him and push Hill to the bullpen, would I complain? No, because I'd like to see him start. I think he can be a starter. I think he'd be a very good starter. I mean, we saw him pitch on Sunday in the Major League game when we were there, and he was great out of in the rotation in the first, 3-4 innings, however long he threw.
They're clearly looking at it. I mean, they're clearly looking at it and they're clearly thinking about it. I think there's no question he starts games for them this year. None.
I mean, probably, yeah.
I would not be surprised. I think it's going to be one of those things where they are not looking at it as you have 5 starting pitchers and you have, if there's 13 pitchers.
Well, you can't do that because
there's 8 in the bullpen.
You can't do that because there's built-in doubleheaders already, and there's going to be more weirdness during the season.
They're going to need.
You need more than 5 starters.
He's going to be stretched out. He's going to, at the very least, follow Rich Hill, who is not a guy who goes more than 5 innings at this point in his career.
No. And also, and I think we've talked about it before, they don't have starting pitching on the 40 man beyond these guys. Like Seabold I don't know what's going on with him. Like he pitched once in Major League spring training, didn't get an out. And, who knows what's going to happen with him once the season starts. I don't think Josh Winkowski is a starter. I think he could be a very good like person in that Whitlock multi-inning role, but I'm not convinced he's a starter. And then like, the best true quote unquote starting pitching prospect I would say is like Bayo, who's in Double-A.
Yeah.
But even he's got a ton of reliever risk.
Right.
And he's not going to be ready until later in the season. And
if he is, then it's not as a starter, probably.
No, you're not going to bring him up as a starter this year. So it's like they don't have a lot of starting pitching options in the minors. So if they have to turn to someone, Whitlock is the clear choice there.
Yep. Agreed. Thank you all for the emails. Again, it's podcast at SoxProspects.com. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Not wrap it up. That's what, that's a different song. But we're going to wrap it up. Thank you all for listening. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at SoxProspects is the site account. Follow Ian at Ian Cundall. That's IANCUNDALL. And follow me at SP Chris Hatfield. And of course, follow the site on Instagram at SoxProspects as well. And as always, we want to shout out our $5 level patreon.com/SoxProspects supporters. That's Kyle C., Tyler Woodrow, Jeff Trainer, David Nardone, Tim Harding, Bill Stanton, Deb Kendall, Evan Kirkwood, Hurricanes 1, Chris Fox, James O'Hara, Nathan Kenyon, Andrew Wallen, David B., Ben Burnett, Al Mendo, Kevin Katrides, Ben NRI, Paul Denyer, Lendl Martin, Cassandra Gupta, James P. McMahon, Stephen Gregory, James Bailey, Andreas Goldstrand, Corey Perrick, Forrest Perkins, Mark Herman, Aaron Meta, Jeff Harwood, Jimmy Mountain, Brian Cowan, Dusty G., Pavel, Jordan Shabbat, Jeffrey Scruggs, Nicholas Staropoli, Bob Introne, Mike Kawano, Chris Bollier, Curtis Waltman, Michael Stewart, Keith Fox, Caleb Farron, John Kane, Andrew K., Tim Ware, Michael Murphy, Kyle Sanborn, and our newest $5 level Patreon supporter, Jason Stoneburner. Thank you for joining the crew, Jason. Your name is terrific. I think that's about it. We're going to have rankings coming up soon for opening day, so check the site for the rankings update. It's coming. We're talking it over right now. We'll hopefully have it up, I think, on Tuesday is the plan. Hope you all have a good weekend. Baseball's coming, people. Get ready. Keep it locked here. We'll be back in your eardrums next week. For Ian, I'm Chris. Thanks for listening.